In this lecture, I am going to add more features into the user registration system that what we learned in the previous lecture, and I am going to add new view, and that view will manage all the registered users, and I'll add that view as users. I'm going to copy some code, HTML code, into this users view. I'm going to create a new controller to manage this user. I'll create a controller called users controller, right? app.controller, that's called users controller. I'm going to use a scope here, and I'll go to the index file and import this users controller. I'll import that users controller before the users factory, before this user factory. I'll explain why I import that before the user factory. And I'm going to give controlling area ng controller users controller, and I have a table created here, and I want to display all the registered users in this table. For that, I'll go to the users factory, and I'm going to write a factory method to retrieve all the users. app.factory, and my factory name is, I'll name as load data, and function. In the function, I'm going to use http directive and the queue directive, and inside of the function I'm going to return that all the users, and for that I'm using the default object. queue.defer, and in the HTTP I'm going to use I'm going to use post method, but if you want, you can use get method also, because I'm not going to pass any data to bring users. I'm not going to do any filtrations, right? And if method is success, function, and it will output the data. I will output data as data, and I'm going to use deferred object here. Dot resolve this data, and if error, deferred object just resolve it as error. If it is error, I'll output data as false. And now I need return this deferred object dot promise. Now I'll go to the user controller and I'm going to call this load data factory from the user controller. I'm going to write a function to load the data. Write scope dot load users function, right, and I'm going to call that load data factory. Result equal load data. To call load data, I have to define in the top, and the call data result dot then I need to get the return function, and the return is output, right, and I'm going to create some users array here, users, and I'm going to equal output dot data. This is what I'm going to get from the factory, and I'm going to get some JSON array. I'm going to convert that JSON array into Angular. For that I'll use angular.copy. This is a safer method because we cannot guarantee that JSON array format we are going to get from the backend. And this is not load users, this is just users, right? And I'm going to show this the users array in the users form. For that I'll use ngRepeat user in users. I don't know about the uniqueness of that identity that I am getting from the backend, this users data. For that time I'm going to use track by index. If you use track by index, that actually the ngRepeat is not caring about that uniqueness of that users data, and it will create that index to identify those data, and I'm going to display those data. User dot first name, then user dot last name, finally user dot email, right? And I have created a function to load this data, and I need to call that function using ng init directive. I'm going to call load users. Check. Yes, load users. Actually, ng init directive will load the data when page loads. That ng init the function calls when the page loads. That's why I used ng init here. I want to redirect to this the users page after the registered user login, and in here I have used some Angular animation also. I need to keep those animations, and I'll use some trick here. I'll create a new function scope dot redirect, and the function I'm going to use the location dot path. If I'm going to use location, I need to declare in the top, and in the path In the app file, I need to give the path for these users. Using Angular root, I'll give .when /users, and the template URL will be that's home/users. And now I can use these users in the location path. I'll use users, and I am going to call this redirect function after 1000 milliseconds, because I need to display that animation. I'll use timeout here, and after successful login I'm going to call this timeout scope dot redirect, and time will be after 1000 milliseconds. That means 1 second. After successfully login, 1 second will display this successful message, and after that it will redirect to these users. We will run the application and see how this is going to be work. Right, I'll enter some saved user details. That's swe@gmail.com, and the password is 123456, and I'll hit login. We will see. Yes, that message displayed. Yes, it redirects to the users page, but there's no data. We will go to the code and see. And yes, user controller, it implements correctly. I think there's no any spelling mistakes, and we'll go to the user factory, load data. I think that one also implemented correctly. We will see what's the issue here. We load the console to see if there's any errors. Yes, I can see some error. This is the easiest way to identify errors. User controller is not a function. That means I did something wrong in the user controller. I have marked as double L here, but in the users file I think it's, yes, it's one L. We'll save this one and refresh the application. We'll see. Yes, it refreshed, but still there's no data. We'll go to the developer that console again, and yes, you can see then property undefined, and this will be an issue on this result. It's saying this is not valid, and we will go to user factory and see is there any spelling mistakes. Load data queue, deferred object, defer, post success, deferred object, resolve. Yes, this is simple P, and we will see the application and rerun it and see. Yes, it loads the data, and when you do the JavaScript, that's very common that you missed that spelling mistakes and those things, because there's no validation happens when you do the typings and things, right? And right, we successfully load the data. Now we see how we are going to edit and add data from this screen. I am going to the users page, and I'm going to copy this register page, this input box, into users page. Right, I'll copy and paste here. Right, and I think you understood that what I'm going to do. I'm going to reuse this this user factories and the controllers. Right, I'm going to go for the register controller, and I'm going to copy this submit function, because this the HTML coding also called for this submit, but the different controller. I'm going to copy that function into controller, and this one is used register factory, and you can see I have used that register factory in two places, the same registered that register user factory. And yes, this coding is finished. We will run this one and see. I'll just refresh the page. You will see input boxes are available with this form. Yes, you can see all the input boxes are available. We will change these details now. Actually, I don't want to go to the login again. I'll just change here to save button name, not register. Right, and other things are same. And after save or update new users, I need to call this load function to load this update into a table, and I think that's the only thing I need to do a change. And yes, I'll put another few buttons here. This is submit button, and I'm going to put some button that's not type of submit. In this one we'll do the clear the form, and for that I'll implement ng click. I'll use the function called clear form, and I'm going to pass this user object, this controllers. Right, I'll go to the user controller and write this clear form function, scope dot clear form function, and I'm going to accept that data user, and I'm going to do this clearing part inside of this clear form, and I'm going to call this clear form function from the submit. Right, clear form is finished. Right, and I'll add another function to delete the data. Right, I'll call that as delete user, and I'm going to pass same delete the same user object to delete function. Right, scope dot delete user function user, and right, and I'm going to write a factory to delete user. I'll go to the user factory. I'm going to write the new factory here, app.factory. This time it will be a delete data, and the function, this I'm going to use the same things, http and the $q and I'm going to return function, the same coding, differ object equal mark q dot differ. I'm going to call the HTTP post. This time I'm going to call home/delete function, and my backend access variable type is usPass and data is returned as user. I'm going to pass user object here. For that I'll define here, and the first one is success. Function, if it is success, I'll get some data here, and I'm going to return that data using deferred object dot resolve data and data. If it is error, I'm going to defer object dot resolve. This time I'm going to return data as false, and I'm going to return this promise. I think I written a function to delete this data. I'm going to use this delete factory in the user controller, and I'm going to call this delete factory result equal delete data, and I'm going to pass this user object. Right, to use delete data I need to define it in the top, delete data, then result dot then function and output. In the output I am going to get if dot output dot data. If it is deleted successful, I'll get true. I'm going to capture that turn, and I'm going to display some message with this animation record deleted. And after that I need to call these two functions, right? And I think I have written this deleted data correctly, right? We will run this application and see how it's going to work. This new the two functions and submit button. And also for our edit task we need to load these details, this the table row detail into this form. For that we write some function using ngClick. I want to load details. I'm going to pass this same user object. I'm going to implement it in this first name. If he hits on the first name, it will call to this load details and pass this user object. And right, I'll go to the user controller again, and my function name is load details. I'll write a new function to that, scope dot load details function. I'm going to access this user object, and I'm going to equal scope.user equal to user. Actually this scope.user is the user inside of this controller, this user, and when I click on the first name, this the row user is passed into this function, and it equals to the controller user, right? Input controller user, right? We will run the application and see. Yes, you can clearly see all three buttons are loaded and with the data. Okay, now we will check the application function wise. First thing, I'm going to check this form clear. I'll type some data here and I'll hit clear button. Yes, all the things are cleared. You can see this fill out this please fill out this field message comes. I think I forget the basic. In my lectures I told if you are going to use Angular validate, you need to remove this HTML5 validate using no validate. Right, we will save this one and see. I'll refresh the page. Right, I'll enter some data here and I'll hit the clear button again. Yes, there's no validate message again, right? And I will check if I implement this clear button correctly. I have cleared first name, last name, email and password. We will go to the database and see. I have first name, last name, email and password, but I have ID users. I didn't clear that one. If you work with objects, you have to clear all the fields in the object. ID users, that's actually an integer field. Because of that, I'll put ID users as 0. And right, we will hit the clear button and see. Right, everything is cleared. Now I am going to check the loading, the data table data loading into this form. I'll hit this one of this row. Yes, you can see data is loaded correctly, right? Okay, and you can see this message here. I think that's a previous message. It comes because of I didn't give default value to these fields. The default, this might be hide, that's true, and this might be blank. And we will refresh this page and see. Yes, you can see no messages anymore, and we will check this data load. Yes, it loads correctly, and now we will check the data update. I'll put Shwank Junior JR. You see, when I type, it automatically updates without hitting the save button. I'll refresh. We will see this change is there or not. Yes, you can see the change is not happened. Actually, this is just a change. It shows in the client side, it's not going to the backend. I'll hit the save button and see. Yes, data is saved. Again, I'll refresh the page. Yes, you can see it saved as Shivanka JR Junior. And now we will check the new data adding, new user adding. I'll put new and user, and my user pass email is user@gmail.com and password is 123, and I'll hit save. Yes, you can see new user is added. We'll just reload the details. Yes, new user is added correctly, and we will do some update. User, just put 01 and do the update. Yes, update is happened, right? And we will check the delete now. Delete, we will check the delete again. I'll add another user. I'll call that as check delete, check@gmail.com, and the password is 123. I'll save the user first, then I'll just I'll reload the page. Yes, this check user is there. I'll load this check user into form and I'll hit delete. Yes, record deleted successfully. Yes, all the functions are working, and I think you understood about this the whole process. I have created user controllers to control these user functions. It's having user loading into a table, and the form clear, and load that one user details into a form, and user details update, and user details create and delete. It covers the full form functionalities. And yes, in the next few lectures you can learn more about this AngularJS functionalities.